Hey Todd, I'll be right with you. I need to check something on the phone.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, where were we?
Oh, well, you're pretty tied to your phone there, Matt.
Well, I sleep with it. I take it to the bathroom with me. It's we're
Really,
tight.
really.
Tight.
You must be one of the boy. That was a brilliant segue right off the bat. Welcome everybody to the filter. I'm Todd, my good friend Matt on the other. I'm in Bryan, Ohio. Matt's in Long Island, New York, and this is our weekly look at all the good stuff going on in ministry. Matt alludes very well, I might add, to a new study that came out this week that said that 44% of all cell phone owners have actually slept with their cell phone. Matt, have you ever, a candid moment here, have you ever slept with your cell phone?
Not since I got married.
But maybe before, huh?
Perhaps before.
Okay, I've actually I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. I've actually put my cell phone on my nightstand as I lay down to sleep. Um, so I guess I would be considered one of the 44% here. It's interesting though. 29%. This is a study that was just released, a Pew Research study. 29. Just a few stats I'll throw at you here, Matt, and then you respond to them if you would. 29% of people say that they can't live without their cell phones. I would probably be there. You? Not
Unfortunately,
live might be a little.
no. It's my brain. I have a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. Let me throw out a couple other stats. 12% of cell phone owners say that people they know tell them that they're spending too much time on their cell phone. That would be me, and that would be my wife. 39% of cell phone owners say their family, friends, and acquaintances will complain if they don't answer their calls or texts fast enough. That would also be my wife. No.
Oh, the irony. Oh, the irony.
Yes,
You know,
yes. You're darned if you do and darned if you don't in
you're
some
totally
of
in the
these
way.
instances. But two more. 67% of cell phone owners say they check their phones for messages, alerts, or calls, even when they don't notice their phone ringing or vibrating. I do that all the time. And there's actually, I should have looked this up, but there's actually some kind of a name for this where you feel like your phone vibrates and it's the
Oh yeah.
phantom. Phantom. I could swear that
Oh
the
yeah.
phone will vibrate in my pocket and I'll pick it out and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
That's weird. Weird. And then 44% of cell phone owners have slept with their cell phones next to their bed because they didn't want to miss any calls or texts during the night. Um, I I don't do that. When I go to bed, I don't really want to be interrupted with a text or a call unless it's from one of my kids that's not home yet or something. But I'll turn the ringer off, but I will put it by my bed so I can kind of reach over and check it first thing in the morning, which is not a good habit to be in.
I have gotten out of that habit. I used to do that.
I don't do that as much as I used to.
Yeah. But that's yeah, I can only imagine what effect that's having on people sleep wise and all the we all talked a couple weeks ago about just how important sleep is, man. I can only imagine how that contributes to our sleep stuff. But man, I tell you, I hate my cell phone, but at the same time, without it, I'm up the creek.
I just got a new one. Check this beauty out. This is a
Ooh.
you're getting reflection off the screen here. This is the new Droid DNA, and
Ooh.
it's huge. My son got the new Samsung Galaxy Note.
Yeah.
That they call it a phablet because
Yeah.
it's a little smaller than an iPad Mini, I think. But he loves it. But he looks like a real dork when he's making a phone call. He's like,
So you're not an iPhone guy.
no, I'm an Android guy, even though I love Apple. But yeah, I'm still. And you're an Android guy too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been an Android guy for a while, and I like it. It's a phone.
Yeah, a lot of my iPhone friends have the love-hate thing going with their iPhone too. They would never admit that publicly, but I don't know what's the lesson here. I guess try to put your phone down. I have to, and I'm just horrible because I get bored very easily. So it's like sometimes I like the distractions,
Yeah.
and that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not right.
I've turned off my ringer, and I'm a straight
Yeah.
vibrate guy now, and I started
Mm-hmm.
doing that intentionally just because the last thing I need was an extra beep and whistle and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff when I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody, trying to
Yeah.
make them feel important. So I'm with you. There's got to be we got to ring those bad boys in. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I am totally with you on that. So what's the first thing you're bringing to the table? I'm not even going to try and segue between cell phones and what
Well,
you have to talk about.
speaking of sleeping with things,
Well, there you go. That'll work.
Adam McLean. I don't know if you're familiar with Adam or not, but he.
Yeah, I know Adam.
Oh, good. Well, it's Todd Rhoades. He knows everybody.
And Adam's watching today. I know. So,
I'm sure he is.
hey, Adam.
How are you, Adam? So Adam does a lot of stuff with youth, and he had something on his blog the other day. It's depression and adolescent sexual activity in romantic and non-romantic relational contexts. A genetically informative sibling comparison, which, man, that's a mouthful.
Explain that to me. I had to read it a couple times to be honest, because he quotes from a research study. So
Yeah.
I had to kind of pare it down to my third grade education. Could you do that for me?
Just to cut it down into something that I can actually understand. Basically, what they're finding, and I think this is something that we all kind of instinctively knew, maybe that if anybody has worked with youth at any time. But there's a link between depression and hookups in teenagers. It's basically the friends with benefit relationships. The going out and getting involved in sexual activity, just to go out and get involved in sexual activity. They're finding a link between moderately depressed kids and incredibly depressed. There's a better official term. It's clinically severe depression. They're finding a link between depressed kids and their sex without attachment. And what was disturbing to me about this is when teenagers less than 15 years old, the depression actually the statistics just kind of shoot through the roof. So it's a statistically more significant when they're less than 15. This was, I don't know, it's disturbing to me, former youth pastor. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it's at the same time it's disturbing. I don't know. You're a father, Todd. Does that turn your stomach?
Yeah, it does. I always find it funny when there are actual scientific studies that kind of back up scripture and life, the kind of what scripture prescribes for lifestyle. Yeah, I mean, it was disturbing, and you wonder. I've got actually 3 teenagers now, and one that's a freshman and one that's a junior in high school. So I get to go to youth group and see a lot of the kids, and it really runs the gamut from just all different types of personalities and tough families and great families. And yeah, no, I think it's just one of those things that, part of me says, did we really need a study to realize that kids that are particularly really young kids that are involved in this kind of activity kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, is it worth any of it? But yeah, not surprising, but disturbing.
Yeah. I remember I had a student several years ago, and the callousness of the way that our kids are treating sex. I had a student a few years ago that was talking with a girl. That he was trying to, well, she thought he was her friend, and she was going through a lot of stuff, and dealing with identity issues, and how did men view me and all that kind of stuff. And he said to her, just flat out, and this was just jaw dropping to me. He says, I really don't want to date you, but I really would like to be friends with benefits. And it's just like,
Yeah.
It's only Jesus that kept from just reaching out and just, this is becoming more and more prevalent. So.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's unfortunate. here in Ohio, from what I've heard, just from what I hear from youth leaders and some people in our church, is that there's um, different types of um, sexual activity that kind of, you know, um, it's almost like it's just a kind of a sexual activity fad of the week or something
Yeah.
that these youth workers are hearing, different things that the kids are experimenting with and trying, and yeah, it's disturbing. I wonder if we would have this type of an open video podcast conversation 10 or 20 years ago, if it would have been a lot different. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Are people just now, is it just more acceptable? And just because if something's more acceptable, does it mean there's more of it? I don't know. Or are people just talking more about it? Because things like this have been going on for, I mean, crying out loud, we went through the 60s. I didn't, but.
Well, 20 years ago, I was in high school, which thanks for reminding me of that. That makes me feel
Yes,
old.
it was 30 for me, so.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know that the activity itself has changed. I think that there's more of a, I think it's just a little bit more callous, and I think it's a little bit more blatant
Yeah.
now. You know what I
But
mean?
do you think the percentages are more?
Yeah, probably.
Do you? I don't know.
What
I don't know. There was a lot of that stuff going on 30 years ago. And
I'm sure.
everybody, the difference was then everybody kind of talked, kind of hush hush about it. And you'd heard this about this person or that person. But now it's just like, yeah,
Well, and I think that's why the percentages are higher. Or just at least in my thinking, I'm
yeah,
wondering if the fact that it's so out there and open and just kind of like, all right, it's here.
yeah,
I wonder if that's not encouraging some of the kids that would be on the fence 20, 30 years ago to just
yeah,
kind of say, you know
yeah,
what, I'm as well, you
yeah.
know.
I think you're probably right on that. I think the more it becomes acceptable, the more people that were kind of on the edge that wouldn't have done things probably would try them, which is
Yeah,
kind of the way that's kind of the way culture works, I
it's
guess.
kind
But
of, kind of like the single mother phenomenon, where it's becoming more and more culturally appropriate to be a single mother. And I think,
yeah,
you look at the
yeah.
statistics on that now. So,
Doesn't make it any more easier, but it makes it more acceptable, I guess.
yeah,
So, well, let's move on to something. I guess if you're Rob Bell, it's maybe as depressing. I don't know.
probably
Rob Bell,
I'd be depressed.
yeah, Rob Bell and his wife gave an interview to the New Yorker, and kind of the headline that I drew out of it was, um, and I had heard, just that Mars Hill, the church, had been down quite a bit in attendance, but according to this article, Rob says that his Love Wins book, actually, that there's a correlation between the release of that book and about a 3,000 member or attendee decrease in attendance at Mars Hill in Michigan, which was pretty substantial. I think the church was what, Matt, about 12,000 maybe.
Yes, probably.
So that's, could have been almost up to a third. Which is pretty major. And the whole article that I read, I didn't read the whole New Yorker article, but it pretty much said that there was a lot of pressure, um, not only on Bell, but on people in the church, that were getting a lot of flack for a lot of people questioning how they could sit under, this heretical leader. And um, a quote here is, I think, from Rob Bell's wife. She said there was a cost, and part of the cost was that we couldn't keep doing what we were doing at Mars Hill. So they kind of put up a kind of a direct correlation between Rob Bell actually leaving Mars Hill because of the book and the teaching in the book, which is just kind of a interesting kind of an inside look as far as what happened there. That maybe it just maybe when Rob left, it wasn't just because he wanted to leave. It was because things were kind of forced upon him, maybe a little bit.
Do you think they were forced upon him, or do you think it was his choice?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do know that if you're in a church, let's say you're in a church of 100 and you lose a third of the people,
Oh yeah.
there will be pressures that will be coming to bear, from whether they're official pressures or not. And I would assume if you're in a 10,000 member church and you lose a third of the people,
Yeah.
and you've got staff and payroll and facilities and budgets to meet, and all of a sudden your giving is down. Yeah, you gotta put the giving aspect in there as well. I'm sure that there are, at the very least, if there wasn't official pressure, that there was some behind the scenes pressure that, dude, this is not going as well as it needs to.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I don't have any inside scoop on that. I don't really care. I just thought it was an interesting story that that last book really did have a lot of, evidently, after the fact, you look back on it, it's like it really had an effect.
Did you read the book?
I read it.
And do you think you're still going to heaven?
Do I think I'm still going to heaven? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you read it, so
I survived it. You know, the one thing, and to me personally, it doesn't bother me when someone writes a book like this and puts out different ideas. That does not bother me at all. Doesn't mean I have to agree with them, okay? And it doesn't mean if I don't agree with them that I automatically brand them a heretic, which I won't do or not do here today. You know what bothered me? The worst part of the whole thing was that even before the book came out, people were trashing it, and even after the book came out, so many people trashed it that never picked up a copy and read the book. It's like, if you're going to trash it, at least read it.
Yeah.
So you know what you're trashing. Read it and then trash it, and then I'll listen. But I'm not going to listen to you if you trash something that you haven't read.
Yeah, the whole thing just smelled like a takedown with a bunch of people with an axe in line just wanting to kind of, I don't know if it was jealous.
Yeah. But you know what? That in a way, that's what Rob Bell wanted. I remember when that first video trailer came out for that book, and he kind of put it all out there and asked all those questions and didn't give any answers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very provocative, and it's very Rob Bell. You know, you throw out the answers, and again, I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
That's marketing. That's marketing. It makes somebody pick up the book and read the book, and that's what he really wanted to do. But it also, when you're provocative and you do that, you invite critics, more so than you would if you just said, "This is what I actually believe. I hope you'll read the book." So it goes both ways. Both ways. But I do think, I'll say this: I think Rob Bell is a brilliant communicator. I think he's good.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't, but there's a lot of great communicators I don't agree with. So.
I reading this, and I don't know if you felt this way or not. Reading the story, my heart was just broken for Rob, and not in the way that even some of the guys that commenting on your site about it, that would think it's broken, but being the guy who played at that church and being a big part of why it was successful for as long as it was, and and then to see this book or whatever, so negatively impact that church, and that it's, you plant a church, you start a church, it's almost like a child. I'm guessing, it's like your child.
Yep.
And I can only imagine what it was like to have to step away from that, knowing that what you were doing in an attempt to expand the kingdom actually ended up hurting. And I just, great deal of just, I was hurting for both of them, for both he and his wife in that.
Yeah, and for the church as well. It's you kind of wonder when you're all finished and done with it if it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have an inside track. Maybe Rob will come on the filter sometime in the near future. And
so Rob, we know you're watching.
Yes.
Have your people call our people.
Yeah.
We John.
Yeah, my people sometimes are kind of hard to get a hold of, but keep trying. You'll get through.
Yeah, I mean, he was wanting to go into the Christian talk show business. I'd say this is a better way to launch his next step.
Yep. This would be definitely, if I was Rob, this would be the place I would do it.
Absolutely.
So the invitation is open.
Yeah.
Invitation is open. And speaking of invitations being open, particularly in the New England region of the United States, Matt, it seems that some people feel like there's not enough invitational calls going out in our New England region.
Yeah, a piece on Slate this week, which I was really surprised to see because Slate's not necessarily the place where you expect to read this kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
talking about re-evangelizing New England is the title, and how church planting and music festivals are bringing about a quiet revival. And the piece I don't know if you get a chance to read it or not, Todd, but it was
Hmm.
actually it wasn't nearly as it wasn't as what I thought it was going to be. I figured it was going to be a attack piece, but basically it was just outlining how over the last several years you've seen a movement, an intentional movement of church planners moving into New
Hmm.
England, wanting to re-evangelize it. So
Hmm.
realizing that for many years, the New England was the cradle of Christianity and had all the evangelical fervor up there and strong churches, and it's really, I mean, it's the church is hurting. The church is hurting.
Yeah, yeah. It's when I think of the country, and I could be totally off on this, but from what I hear other people say that the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest, the ground is it's really tough ground.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is something I go back and forth with people on. I don't know that it's tough, so to speak. It's just different.
Yeah, it is. It is different.
I would, I've been in churches in the Northeast. I've been in churches in Atlanta. When I was in Atlanta, we would have to convince people that they didn't know Jesus before we had
Hmm.
that they wanted to.
Hmm.
Up here in the Northeast, it's not nearly as difficult. You skip that whole first step, and people are blatantly honest. It's different, and there's a degree to which the culture is far more secularized. Um, but it's just
Is it?
it's
So
different.
what would be the difference between that and European?
I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with what's going on over there um, to be able to speak intelligently to it. Um, I think we're probably, best I can tell, I think the Northeast is maybe 20 years from there.
Okay.
What's been your experience?
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of the parts of the country I've never been to is the Northeast. I've just not been up there, but so I'm just going on what I've heard.
Yeah.
Um, Europe, it was interesting. I was there a couple months ago when we did the nines, and it very interesting culture. It's very secular, but there's a lot of God's moving a lot of different things, and a lot of things are happening over there. So, I mean, it seems um, it was different. It's not that people are against the gospel. It's just that the gospel isn't nearly. It's not on every street corner, and there's not a church in every corner.
Right.
There actually are a lot of churches that are not churches anymore over there, but it's not. I think my take is that there are parts of our country that are more aggressive against the church than what I picked up when I was in Europe. Um, but
Okay.
that could be wrong. But anyway.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I say when I think we're probably about 20 years from that. I think right now we're still post-Christian in
Hmm.
much of the Northeast.
Hmm.
Uh, whereas my understanding of Europe is it's just flat out secular.
Yeah.
I think a story that kind of gives a good idea of maybe the wariness that the Northeast has about the church. We were planning and this actually comes out in the story in the article, that kind of a fear or wariness. I don't know if it's a flat out cringing back, type of a thing, but just a wariness, not trusting necessarily the motives
Hmm.
people that are coming up. But when we were church planning in Baltimore, okay, we had a guy that I love this dude. He gets it far more than he lets on. He's still kind of wrapping his head around the whole Jesus thing, but the dude gets it. And I mean, this is a dude that when we found out that we moved, he gave up 3 days of his life, came up and helped us repaint the basement and created so that Teresa and I could move in here to care for her father. But he and I, we would talk and we would talk and we would talk, and every now and then his wariness of the church would come through, and I think the thing that summed it up for him was when he told me, so basically what's going on here, because we're planning as part of a movement. He said basically what's going on here is you have a whole bunch of people from the South coming up here to Baltimore, and basically what they're trying to do is get us to vote Republican.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And that's the mindset.
Yeah.
That's the mindset. So I think that's what's going on, and I think 20 years from now you won't have that issue unless we kind of somehow get our act together. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, and I find it. I've got a pastor friend that pastors in Pennsylvania, and he moved from Michigan to Pennsylvania, and just the culture there is just like you said, and I'm sure it's different in where he's at in Pennsylvania from Boston. I'm sure they're totally different cultures as well. But it's interesting. In Atlanta, it would be totally different.
Yeah.
So one size does not fit all, and one culture is not the same all across the country, which is really interesting. Well, let's move on to. I've got a couple here. I'm going to go off the schedule here a little bit, Matt, and combine these next two. Maybe they fit, maybe they don't. But talking about conflict, boy, there's a lot of conflict that goes on in the church, and the most recent one we kind of plugged it a little bit last week, that we were going to talk about Pat Robertson a little bit this time, but Pat came on with one of his 700 Club things and kind of said, we'll put the clip on the show notes, maybe just a short video clip where he kind of said that maybe the earth is a little bit older than some of the younger earth creationists would like. And our good friend Ken Ham, hey Ken, know you're watching. Ken Ham, who is the I don't remember what Ken Ham's official organization is, but he runs the Creation Museum. Answers in Genesis, is that what it is?
Yes.
Something like that. Came out and just did not have nice things to say about Pat Robertson and his views. This is something he put on his Ken Ham put on his Facebook. He said, not only do we have to look at to let our kids be led astray by the anti-God teaching of the secularists, we now have to work hard at not letting them being led astray by compromising church leaders like Pat Robertson. Pat Robertson gives more fodder to the secularists, and we don't need enemies from without the church when we have such destructive teaching within the church.
Wow. Them's fighting words.
Those are fighting words, and last week you stood up for Pat Robertson, and this week, darn it, I'm going to stand up for Pat Robertson.
I'm coming to.
I know this is a weird and strange turn of events. I don't know. I wasn't here 3,000 or 6,000 or 2 million years ago to know when the earth was formed. I believe that creation is as God said it, that God spoke things into being. When he did it, I don't know. And I'm going to get myself in trouble here, Matt, but I don't care. I don't care. And maybe I care. I don't know. But it's not something that I'm going to fight about. It's not something that I'm going to call somebody out on. And it's not somebody that I'm going to say is anti-God or compromising or anything. Ken, thumbs up to Pat, thumbs down to you on this one. I just, it bothers me.
Have you ever been in a creation fight?
Yeah, and that's probably why it bothers me.
Yeah, me too. I watched I was on staff at a church that nearly split over this.
Yeah, the churches do. I don't get it.
And it's the Ken Hamites and the others, and it's just like it gets ugly. Oh, man, does it get ugly? It's like, what, really?
Yeah.
Is this really what God intended?
Yeah.
So, just saying.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to lead into this next story, which I thought maybe could. I thought was a really fresh take on church conflict. It was written by Joe McKeever, and he pretty much says sometimes when we find ourselves in church conflict, particularly, why don't we just, wouldn't it be better if we were just wronged than make such a big stink and cause such a big controversy, and particularly with a lot of the things that we've talked about here on the filter the past weeks, where these conflicts roll over into the media and they become a big national news story about how these Christians can't get along. The story we just talked about, the Ken Ham, Pat Robertson thing, national headlines. It's like, why? Just, Ken, would it not have been better just to let it go? And even at the local church level, I wonder sometimes if it's not better just to let some things go. And I realized, boy, that's hard to do. And we had a couple things on my blog the past couple of weeks where we talked about this subject, and people were, no, you have to stay and fight. You can't let the, there's a mentality, you can't let the infidels win. I think it's a personal decision for everybody, particularly when there's conflict in the church and you feel like you're wrong. Do you stay? Do you go? Do you try and work through the system inside to make the changes that you feel need to be made, particularly if it's a theological issue? But a lot of times these aren't theological issues, or they are theological issues like this creation thing, but they're not. They're secondary and those type issues. I'm sorry, I'm done talking. You tell me what you think.
I had a friend of mine the other day that he and I were talking, not about this, but about something else. And he's getting up there. He's in his 50s.
Keep moving.
Just let that hang out there. And I was asking what he
Exactly.
thought about some things, and he says, over the last few years, the things that I am willing to take a bullet for or be a martyr for has just been narrowing more and more and more, to the point where he's getting down to the deity of Jesus, the importance of the Trinity, the inerrancy of Scripture, and a few other things that he was talking about. And it's like, we really, as a church, we need to start heading in that direction. Get away from some of these little petty wars that start over.
You know what? That really resonates with me, Matt, because that's kind of been my trajectory the last 10 years or so. It is that I found less and less things that today than what I would have 10 years ago that I really feel like are worth fighting over.
Yeah.
But I see a whole lot of people that are the opposite of me. That the older they get, it seems like it widens the number of things, and they can't accept change, or they if it's non-theological, or they'll pick up on one of these. I see this happen all the time with things like purpose-driven. I've seen this happen with people pick up stuff on the internet about something negative about Rick Warren or purpose-driven, or something from Ken Ham, or something from one of these other guys, and it's like it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And we have to correct this wrong that's being perpetrated on the Christian church.
Yeah. Well, Seth Godin, he was talking. Oh, this may have been a year ago, about just along this line. It might have been in Lynchpin. I don't know. Just about, he talks about tribes and all that kind of stuff, and he's saying in the new economy and the way things are now, it's very easy to build a tribe really quick when you go negative like this and you focus on,
Yeah.
what everybody else isn't. It's hard to do anything good. It's hard to make a positive difference based that way, but it's really easy. And a lot of these things, man, I tell you, maybe I'm cynical, but what I read the Ken Ham stuff being is a fundraising drive. It's look,
That's very cynical.
yeah, I admit it.
Yeah.
It's like, I look at it. It's like, come on, man, really? You're doing this for a few bucks?
But again, this is something I think, though, that's been happening for years. It just has kind of new skin on it. Isn't that what the whole moral majority was back in the 70s?
Oh yeah.
Because I remember getting those 3-page letters from Dr. Falwell, and nothing negative. I think Jerry was a great guy. Don't didn't know him, but no, it was you get the fundraising letters, and they were 10 ills. Yes.
Jerry?
Yes. I hope there's something better to do in heaven than watch reruns of The Filter. But that was bad, man. Anyway, let me get us back to the subject here. Yes, I'll give you a moment just to make your soul right there. But there was really a list of 10 things of this congressman's going to bring this. This is happening here. The abortion rate is up. All this kind of stuff. But at the end of it, it was always, we need your help.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, particularly with some of these kind of one issue movements in the kingdom that, you really do. You have to fire up your base.
Yeah.
Not that that's the reason that they do it, but there's an infrastructure there that we're probably getting in trouble now. But I just got notice that Ken Ham just got off the broadcast. So.
Oh, sorry to see you go, Ken.
Okay, well, I've run that one into the ground. So what else you got there on your side, Matt?
What else do I have? Indeed, while we're talking about money and all that kind of stuff, you want to talk about what would Jesus do about taxes?
Yeah, I read that. That was really interesting. Give us a synopsis on that. Yeah.
Okay, this was a CNN deal. It was an audio blog thingamajiggy. I don't know exactly what they would call it, but basically they're talking about with all the debate about taxes and all that stuff going on right now. What does Scripture say about taxes? And they brought in a handful of different guys. I think Walter Brugman. Am I saying his name right?
I have no idea.
Sorry, Walter. I know you're watching. Nothing personal. But a handful of guys just to kind of look at different biblical takes on it. They talked about the temple tax and how everyone paid a half a shekel because everybody's soul was equal value, and they talked about some stories in the Talmud, about how when they're building a wall, they're supposed to ask, are we building it for our personal safety, or are we building it to protect what we have? And if we're building it for our personal safety, everybody should throw in the same amount. But if we're doing it to protect what we have, then the people closest to the wall and the wealthiest should pay more because they're protecting more. But I'm listening to the thing, and and this is something that I've felt going back even through the elections and all the talk. Every time we start talking about taxes, everybody talks about fair. What's fair and fair share and this and that. And I think I heard Andy Stanley a few weeks back talking about, what? Everybody wants what's fair for them, but they don't want what's fair for somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just, that's kind of where I've been getting on. I mean, you look at some of the parables that Jesus is talking about. Fair. What's fair? The guy that starts working at 8 in the morning, and the guy that starts working at 4, when they get off at 5, they all get paid the same wage. Well, that's not fair, unless you're the guy that started at 4, right? So I don't know. I like Walter's take. Like your take, Walter. Just about instead of being so focused on protecting what's ours and being focused on fairness, maybe we should start talking a little bit more about how do we protect our communities, and how do we start re-engaging and going after the public good. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I think you're extremely socialist.
I am.
How could you even? No, you know what? I didn't listen, but I read the article that you sent over, and we'll have that in the show notes. But I don't know. It got me thinking about some of those same parables that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And Jesus just goes in and turns everything absolutely upside down. So my takeaway is I don't have any idea what Jesus would say on taxes.
Okay.
I mean, I really don't. Although I think that the system we have right now is just totally cumbersome and broken. And the idea, looking at just what's going on right now with the fiscal cliff thing, the idea that anybody in our country and Washington and government is going to be able to do what you suggested, which is look out for the needs and the desires of others rather than yourself. is probably not going to happen
Yeah.
anytime soon, I'm guessing.
And this is where my cynicism comes back in, because I think everybody's too focused on raising campaign dollars to actually care what people want. But just saying.
Yeah, everything. And I think what they're stuck with the fiscal cliff thing right now is both sides have things that they've said that they wouldn't do, and both sides are going to have to at some point fall on that pledge. And everybody's scared to death what's going to happen in the next election. It's like, I thought about this this is something totally off the wall. I thought about this. I think this could have been a great movement. Maybe we'll do it for next year. Maybe you and I will start this movement.
Oh boy.
Just a total reset of the government. Total reset. Just vote everybody out. I don't care if they're good. I don't care if they're bad. Just vote absolutely everybody out that's on the ballot. If they're an incumbent, don't vote for them. Vote for somebody else. Let's put that out there now so we can get really good candidates for the next time.
Yeah.
But could if the entire government turned over in 4 years and it was all a bunch of newbies, could it be any worse than what it was now?
Okay. Do you really want me to answer that?
Yes.
I think it could. And you know why?
Why?
Because the staffers are still in place.
Oh, let's fire all the staffers too.
Okay, if we fire them, man, I'm cool with it.
Okay, let's fire all the staffers and all the lobbyists and the secretary. Yeah. And
I'm there.
Okay.
I'm there. I would love to see, and this is going to go down all sorts of rabbit trails. But there's two things that I think would change our government for the better. One is a limit on how many staffers a senator or congressman can have. To like 2, maybe 3, and then cleaning out all the campaign finance stuff. Just so.
Yeah, what did we spend over $1 billion on this election?
Oh yeah.
And absolutely nothing changed.
Yeah.
As far as the makeup of any of the stuff, yeah. So it's interesting. All right. You know what I think we need? We need more fundamentalist Christianity at West Point. The good military school. I think that also, I would add that to my list as long as we're firing everybody.
Is that your campaign platform right there?
That is it. Fire everybody and more fundamentalist religion at West Point.
Todd is referring to an interesting story that caught my eye. CNN in America just talking about a West Point cadet 5 months out from graduation resigns in a blaze of glory with a blog post saying that he's getting out because there's too many fundamentalist Christians and they're trying to evangelize everybody, and he's essentially, I guess, atheist or secular or whatever he wants to call himself. And I don't know. I have strong feelings about this, Todd, and part of this.
You have a little bit of a military background, I understand.
Yeah, I went to the Air Force Academy. I was a cadet out there. I was out there for 2 years. First year is when I actually came to know Jesus, and the second year was called ministry, and then I got kicked out, which is another story for another podcast.
Yes, we'll save that for next week. It'll be Pat Robertson, and then whatever Pat says this week. Yeah. And then you getting kicked out of military school.
Yeah. So maybe not next week. Maybe we'll do it
next year sometime.
Yeah, next. So anyhow, we So I have strong feelings about this because I was really surprised when I was at Air Force at the amount of Christian influence out there, and it positively impacted me. But it wasn't it didn't feel like the way he's describing it. So I don't know if that's just a difference with West Point or not. But I thought the story was interesting in that it expresses a minority viewpoint that we don't hear a whole awful lot. And then there were some pieces to a story that I just was like, okay, I see what you're doing now. Just he was disqualified from being an officer for some medical issues and all that kind of stuff. That it's like, okay, so you're bailing now because you can't be an officer. So I don't know. This one was pretty close to the surface for me. What did you think when you were reading this?
Yeah, the thing I thought, and I read the whole article, is that, and they quote another person that was also at West Point that described himself as a Christian, but a liberal Christian.
Yeah.
And he said, I see all kinds of discrimination, whether it's sexism or against Islam or some of the stuff, but I've never really seen anything that he's describing. And he kind of points a finger and says, this guy just wasn't cutting it, and this was an easy way out for him. I have absolutely no idea, but it is kind of interesting that he put up with it for so long and just that close to his graduation that he decides that he's so enraged that he has to quit and make this kind of manifesto on the internet as far as how horrible things are there. So I kind of took it with a grain of salt, to be honest. And I do with a lot of these atheist stories that come out.
Right.
With the people that usually there's something else kind of bubbling behind the scene with some of these, rather than just that. There's something that causes them all of a sudden to come out and cry foul. But I don't know. I could be wrong. But yeah, it's interesting your take on that from kind of your background too. I wouldn't have had that input. But I came across something really this past week that I thought was really thought-provoking. Comes from Joel Hunter, who is at the lead pastor at Northland, a church distributed in Orlando, and he's just been him and his family. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
No, I said, hey, Joel.
Oh, hey, Joel. Yeah, I doubt that Joel's watching today. Joel has a lot of stuff going on with his family, with his son and their church down there. Pray for the Hunter family and the whole Summit Church and everything that's going on down there. But I actually found this totally unrelated to everything else that's going on. But I found this on Joel Hunter's kind of staff page on the Northland website that I thought was just really good. I hate to read, but let me read this because I thought it was really good. It talks about the church. It says, congregants take leadership of nearly every ministry effort inside the church, out in the community, and around the world. Elders, pastors, and paid staff don't try to control the initiatives of congregants or the connections they make, and they don't watch over their shoulders unnecessarily. Dr. Joel Hunter encourages Northlanders, do what you can, where you are, with what you've got. And I just thought, man, that is a dynamite paragraph, and it was just hidden in a staff profile. But what if because this is not common in many churches, first of all, to empower your congregants, to not look over everybody, to not have everything kind of tight-fisted and controlled in a ministry. This is the church's ministry, and these are the rules and the regulations and the guidelines. If you want to be a part, this is how we're going to do it. It's a very freeing. I love it. Do what you can, where you are, with what you've got, and really what they're saying, I think, is you don't need us to do it. You see a need, you go out and you meet it. You don't have to stamp our name on it. Be the hands and feet of Jesus with the people that God has put in front of your path. And we're here to support you and encourage you and do anything we can to facilitate you being able to do that. Man, that's a breath of fresh air for me. I wish that more churches would kind of take on that philosophy. So push back. Is that did you like that, or did?
I'm with you, man. I really am. And I think what's written into that for me is just a belief in the fact that each of us are really empowered to be ministers, and we don't need the professional clergy to. There's a confidence that we have in the abilities of the people that are around us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of hearing guys, in ministry say, well, if we just had the right people, if we just had this, or if we just had that, you got them. You got the people that God's given. They know their context far better than you ever will. Go let them go do their thing. So I can go for
Yeah.
hours on that. That'd be bad.
Yeah, I think Craig Rochelle says that in some way as well. Is that God has given you absolutely everything you need to do exactly what you need to do right now. You don't have to wait around and wait for anything else. You've got it all. He's given you everything you need. Just do it. Yeah.
Do it.
Yep. Yep. That's cool. That's cool. Yes. Heavenly bliss on earth if a lot of churches would do that.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun to watch.
And it's something I struggle with at our church a lot of times because I think there's a disconnect between, and this is not a good thing, and I think we're starting to make some strides on it. But there's a disconnect between the people in our church and a lot of churches between the things that they do 6 days of the week and the things that they do at church on Sunday. And the church has always put out these ministries. We want you to be part of this ministry and this ministry and this ministry. But then these people go out and they're coaching their little league teams, and they're being the Girl Scout, whatever you call that when you lead a Girl Scout troop, and ministering to their teachers in schools and nurses in hospitals and working on the assembly line. And people have not kind of understood that is where God has put them, and that's where you do what you can where you are with what you've got. That's your ministry. You don't need the church to carry on your ministry, be the hands and feet of Jesus on the assembly line. But we as church leaders have to encourage people and help them to see that, because a lot of people just don't.
Yeah.
They don't see it. But once that light comes on, whoa.
They start going crazy.
Watch out. Yeah. No, that's exciting stuff. That's yeah.
And those are the churches that just you keep hearing the amazing stories coming out of the churches that learn how to let people leverage the context that they're in and go do crazy things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like we need to sing Kumbaya or something.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
We just solved all of the church's problems.
Yeah, we did.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, cool. Well, you're going to close us out. I'm not sure if this is a good one to close on or not, but the article is called "Going to Hell with Ted Haggard."
Yes.
Take it away, Matt.
It was Leadership Journal, and you know what? With a title like that, I had no choice. I had to read it. Okay. Here's the deal. Okay. Basically, this dude, Michael Cheshire, is hanging out with a friend of his in having lunch with a guy who doesn't know Jesus. Guy looks over his shoulder and sees Ted Haggard on the screen and says, that's my problem with you Christians. And it's like, okay, that's kind of an intriguing statement. But basically what he's saying is, you keep eating your own, you keep killing your dead, you keep bringing it up, and you don't ever really forgive people. And so this dude just got cut by that,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, yeah. I mean, what do you think of when the word Ted or the name Ted Haggard comes to mind? Your facial expression says it all.
Exactly. And they didn't get to see it, but it was kind of like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his whole point was that we eat our young and that we don't forgive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and get this. This dude is going out of his way. He lives in Denver. Ted Haggard's down in Colorado Springs. He's going out of his way to develop a friendship with Ted and his wife. And he's getting people in his church who are saying, well, if you continue doing that, I just don't know that we can continue sitting under your authority.
Yeah. I've got mixed feelings on this. First of all, let me say that I think we eat our young. Is that the right?
Yeah.
Is that the right metaphor? Eat our
dead. We
I think we do. I think many times that Jesus offers forgiveness to individuals long before we do.
Yeah.
And that's not right or not correct. My biggest my biggest problem with Ted since then has been just some of the things he says. I just wish he wouldn't say.
Mm-hmm.
I see this a lot with particularly preachers. I'm grasping for words here because I know this is recorded, but
This is
that
fun to watch for me.
yes, I know you like to watch me
Welcome to
squirm a
watch
little bit
God
here.
squirm.
Well, I determined not to do the Gangnam Style dance this week because I got called on the carpet for that last week. But this week I'll squirm about something different. Yeah, I don't know what I feel about Ted. I feel like I've forgiven, and I don't have a problem with that. And I think Jesus is forgiven. He seems like a very sincere individual. I just think some of the things that he says is not helpful, not only to himself but to the Christian community and to those people like this guy was sitting at in a restaurant with. That's my only thing is that I think sometimes, and I feel the same way about Pat Robertson, to be honest. It's like, Pat, I think you're a great guy. I'd love to sit down and have coffee with you, but I wish that you wouldn't try to speak for all of us.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm trying to think of specifics that came out that he said. He did the wife swap thing, which was just odd. It was just odd.
Yeah.
And I guess and maybe it's just purely my emotional thought that if I ever got caught in something this public and this devastating, that I think my personal tendency would be to hide under a rock like for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it's weird for me that he kind of actually it appears that he kind of seeks out this media stuff. And just when you thought you'd never hear another word he says, he comes out with something else that's provocative and it gets picked up on everything, and all of a sudden it's back in the limelight. That bothers me more than anything, but it's not. I don't think it's a forgiveness issue for me.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that he actually seeks out and how much of it is him being sought out. Just out of curiosity and not being able to say no,
I don't know. In 5 minutes of fame, I don't know that. Do you think anybody's seeking him out?
I wouldn't be surprised if every now and then it's like, oh, we need to trot somebody out that we can, and this is my cynical. Let's.
Yeah, could be.
I get the sense of, oh, he's always willing to give us a soundbite, so let's go that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I get what you're saying. I think for me in reading this, and I've always kind of had a heart for guys that have fallen.
Yeah.
In ministry, and just my heart really breaks for them because, in the span of 15 minutes, typically they go from doing something that they loved to having absolutely no skills that are transferable to,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've
watched guys lose houses because the church just all of a sudden everything, their entire support structure just disappears on them.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what it's like to operate like that. Everything that you've known, everybody that you've known, all of a sudden turns their back on you. I don't know what I would do in that, but what I appreciate about this article and is that the dude's just being intentional about going and saying, okay, you know what, I'll be your friend.
Yeah.
And he's taking heat for it, which is a shame.
Yeah. I wish, and part of this, and obviously, I was brought up in a pretty fundamentalist background, and I'm amazed. We were talking in our home group the other night about our background and how much of that, your upbringing, you actually still bring to the table in your Christian life. But I was always brought up that and I still cling to this a little bit, that when you've got particularly a lead pastor or a person that is the pastor in a church, that when there's a moral failure of this type caliber, and I would put Ted Haggard's up there about as high of a moral failure, a public moral failure as you could get, that there's kind of an expectancy, at least in the circles that I grew up with, that you'll never be able to be restored to that level. It's not that you can't be restored, to some level of service. But you kind of one strike and you're out on that. And yeah, there's still a big part of me that says, yeah, you've really kind of disqualified yourself from service. One of the honest things that I have a problem with Ted on, and it's not a level of forgiveness. It's just a kind of one of those things that's in the back of my mind, is that he broke off from the people that he agreed to help restore him.
Right.
And again, I don't know the other side of that. I know vaguely some of the people that were involved in that. But yeah, the restoration process that was set up was not followed through on. And then, a few weeks after that happens, there's another church that starts that he's the pastor of. So those things all do kind of, it's not a matter of, do I feel Ted has been forgiven? It's more a matter of, is this really good for the body? Was it good for the body, for the church in Colorado Springs, that within literally, you can see where the new church started. You can look out the backyard of Ted's house and see New Life Church.
Yeah.
Was that a good thing and a good decision by Ted? I would say no, it wasn't. So I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of different layers there, aren't there?
Oh, it's an onion.
Yeah.
It's definitely, there's definitely there. I think the one thing I heard you say that has me thinking, going down tangents over here, is, when somebody does certain things that disqualify from ministry. I get that. I so get that. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's like, we learn so much more about race when we go through something like that. Should that really disqualify us? I don't know the answer on that one.
Yeah, I don't either. And I'm not saying that is always the case. I will say that I don't know that I've seen a lot of, particularly the high profile guys that fall.
Yeah.
That make it through the restoration process, and have the willingness to do what it takes to be restored, either in the eyes of their church or their denomination or whatever their setup is. I don't see a lot of guys that are willing, because it takes time and it takes work and it takes transparency. And I don't see a lot of guys that actually finish that course. And I probably would really have no problem if they finished the course that was set up before them and
Right.
took the time that it took to do it. But I just don't see a lot that are able to actually do that. And I think so much of what you said is true, Matt, that you've got Ted, who's late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
This is all he's ever done.
Do you think, and sorry to jump all over you, but do you think that the reason that the people don't complete it has more to do with the punitive nature of
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think part of it is, man, I don't have 3 years. I got to make a living. I got a family.
Well, not even that. Just the whole idea of, okay, well, we're going to put discipline on you, and you will come out of this, and just I don't know, and I could be off on this, but there's that piece that's huge. But I wonder if there's not a piece that it's kind of like, okay, we're going to slap this on you, and you will follow, and you will do this, and you will do that, and I don't know. Maybe I'm off on that, but that's kind of popped in my head.
Yeah, I think this type of thing, and we could do a whole show on this, and this is something I actually find really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like a death. I think, and the Ted Haggard story, when it came out, is a great case study for the different phases of this. I think originally, once they're found out, a lot of them, it's just instant. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I goofed up. This was horrible. I take full responsibility. And that's the first stage. And then there's the, okay, so we're going to swoop in and we're going to try and save this guy phase. And then give it about 3 months. And the guy's like, you're beating me up now. Okay. I did it. I know I did it, but seriously, lay off. And that's where I think the pivotal stage of it has been, and that's what happened with Ted. I mean, it would appear, he admitted it, and it took him a while, and it usually does. I mean, he adamantly denied it to begin with. I remember that when they ambushed him in his car with his wife Gail right next to him. It was horrible.
Yeah.
But he finally came clean. He agreed to the restoration process. 3 months later, he's out of it, and he's off doing his own thing. But I think you're probably right that initially they think, yeah, I can do this, and 2 or 3 months into it, they either feel like, hey, either I got to move on with my life, this is taking way too long, or you guys are being extremely unfair and too hard on me. The same thing happened with Jimmy Swaggart, back in the day when he pretty much didn't follow the rules the Assemblies of God put out for him, and just pretty much left the denomination, went on his own. So
That's
interesting.
Yeah, that's I appreciate something that Johnny Hunt's doing down at First Baptist Woodstock. They have the City of Refuge program where they bring in pastors who've fallen and give them housing, give them a stipend, and say, look, for a year, you're here voluntary, but for a year we're gonna help you deal with this stuff and make sure that you guys don't go bankrupt in the process. And it's a cool kind of graceful deal. So
yeah, and there's a couple people you don't hear about that do those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think it's great. I mean, you have to, when those things happen, as devastating as they are, you have to think about the family.
Oh,
And
yeah.
usually there's a marriage and there's children involved, and those are the most important things.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, you got to think of the income, because this person is going to be totally out of a job. I mean, totally out of a job, no income, and like you said, probably they're going to lose their house, they're going to lose their credit, and on top of that, they've got a marriage that's probably in the crapper.
Yeah.
Because of what's come out. So
the church is just turning their back on you.
Yeah.
And it's so you don't even have anybody to talk through this with.
But what's a church to do? What's a church to do? What's a church of 250 people that has a pastor that has an affair supposed to do? They can't continue to pay.
Yeah.
They can't continue to have him be the pastor. So it's all there. I think there's almost got to be this third party like what you're saying Dr. Hunt's doing, that kind of comes in and supports, but somebody's got to support them to do that too. So anyway, I'm sorry, we got into a long tangent on that. I'm sure we're over time on that, but we should do a special edition show on that sometime and bring somebody in. That would be interesting.
That would be fascinating. We really should. That could be fascinating. Anyhow,
we digress.
Yeah, all the time. So.
What you got coming up? You got anything been coming up this week?
This week, actually tonight, I am I'm nursing a bit of a cold. I don't know if you've noticed that or not.
I noticed you're a little raspy this morning.
Yeah, a little raspy. I'm supposed to be speaking at our church's Christmas banquet tonight, which should be just all sorts of holly jolly goodness. So that should be fun. We're just kind of doing the coaching thing. It had a couple more teams that we're putting together to come up to Long Island to do some relief work in early January. And dude, get this. I don't know if I told you this, but I think last week I told you we had 30 guys in from Maryland. They busting out all these houses and stuff. 5 people end up coming into a relationship with Jesus. And
excellent.
Yeah.
You should have led with that, man. Why'd you leave that for the end?
I don't know. I just, stupid. But, I was much more excited about talking about, sleeping with cell phones and stuff. So, so it was cool. It was cool. And we got a lot more guys that are looking to come up. So, yeah, if you would bring a crowd out from Brian, I'll hook you up. A nice patch of floor in a church, 20 minutes from here.
Cool. Yeah, I'll think about that. Seriously.
Cool.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
My problem is I am not a handyman.
That's why
I would. Yes, I would be more in the way if you put a hammer in my hand.
But you don't have to be. You don't have to have a hammer. It's all demo now.
Oh, I can demo.
Yeah.
I can demo.
Stuff.
Yes.
Break stuff. So.
I can do that. I don't really have anything big this week. I've been on vacation this week, going back going back to work next week, working on some plans for my Work with Leadership Network for the next year, some online conferences and some other things we got on tap there. So it's going to be a good year. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
So I think I'm working next week, taking the next 2 weeks off.
Nice.
So, boy, yeah, it's going to be nice. I always try and at the end of the year just kind of relax and rest up because I like to hit it big time the first of the year. So that's what I'm doing. So I guess we'll see you again next week. Same
Next
bat
Friday.
time, same bat channel.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Have a good week, Matt.
You too. See ya.
See ya.